what have you set yourself, then you can see how, if it's the amount of time you've got that you haven't been able to do anything or chosen to do anything, that can be just an increase of spare time that you haven't filled. Do you know what I mean? But then it could then link to spiritual. So then when you fix how your biological set is, so in terms of sleep, eating, and just attitude towards stuff, then how you feel inside spiritually could alter, and then you could have a different approach organically to what you have to face. Not necessarily challenges, but you know, like everyday tasks.
Stuff. See, I didn't want to stop you, but one thing I wanted to ask is, like, if you're saying that you'd go to obviously Pops and you're like, you know, I'm feeling lazy and I'm motivated, he's likely to then recommend a few things here, of course. But what would happen if he said that's the kind of challenge that we're facing? Because having to, of course, we know when we're dealing with something, you take it to your uppers, your elders, that type of thing. So when you take it there and then you hit that roadblock, I bounce back in dealing with it to yourself. Just before I let you go, Rami, bounce back in dealing with yourself. I just wanted to introduce the next question so you can touch on it as you go. How does identity play a role into mental health? That's the next question there.
I think, so I can carry on. That goes in perfectly with what I was going to say as well, because dealing with the situation where you got to tell your parents, or you're unmotivated, or you're depressed, or you don't know where you're going in life, like, no matter how you look at it, it's like we're living in a new time where our parents haven't gone through social media. Like, social media is such a big part of our identity, to the point where we hate being ourselves because we're looking at all of these people that set high expectations, and we're trying to be like them. So it's like this addiction with, like, getting to a place of, cool, we're gonna make this much money, I'm gonna have to like this, you get me? 18, 17-year-olds or younger people are hating themselves because they're not at the stage where some successful people are, you get me? Like, everyone wants to be successful straight away, so it's like our parents wouldn't have dealt with that in their time, get me? A lot of the time. This is something very new. This is something very new, so it's like you said, going back to dealing with it ourselves, that's something that we're going to have to do. So because of social media, there's positives and negatives. A lot of it, the positives are the knowledge that we have to kind of free ourselves, and if we really wanted to and we took the responsibility, we could look at we can get a lot of help from, whether it's through connecting with other people that think like us, or other people that are in similar situations. So it's more about connecting, creating your own community of people that can kind of help you get out of that yourself. And sometimes it could be your parents, sometimes your parents will be the cause of that, unfortunately, sometimes.
I think it may be just an interaction between the two. You know, there's a lot of trauma which is passed down and that they may have experienced, that they may be trying to rid of, maybe sometimes passing on to us, and vice versa. We're facing stuff outside in schools and wherever, feeding it back. So I can completely understand that. I feel like with the question, like, identity playing a role into mental health, like that whole thing of, I had to say this to my mom and dad, like, they have, most of my life was in the UK, so I understand that I have an African culture, I have a Zimbabwean culture, and then I also understand that I have the British side, where I've spent most of my life, where I perceive things. So I had to break it down to them and be like, sometimes when I don't understand this, it's because I slightly perceive it from a different culture, as well as we're in the same culture. We also have those differences. For example, dating is massively different, you know, when with a lot of people who are now in the diaspora from their countries. So things do change. In terms of identifying yourself, we talked a lot about self-education in the last bit, and I think bringing, like, some context to it, it's like, how do you self-educate? You know, because the information we need is not really readily available in that way, because a lot of our history and heritage has been torn down and depleted, destroyed, or whatever it may be. So it's, how do we, you know, educate ourselves correctly? I know a lot of people who, I'm not to get too political, but for example, would vote for someone who I may not vote for when I identify as a black male. You know, so how do we educate ourselves accurately?
I think it's not as much as like how, like, what we're learning. Like you said, it's about how we're learning in a way. So if we're being open-minded, and we're open to looking at both sides, that will give us a more a better perspective, should I say. So you can resonate with the truth more like that as well. So if you're having a conversation with your parents, going back to that point there, it's like you'll be better at breaking things down and being able to communicate with them better, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I feel like the education can come through watching a video with this, you know what I'm saying? This counts as education as well. It's like the positive or negative, it's like understanding the negative side but also just utilizing the positive side and just heading for that more, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But there's loads of different ways of getting knowledge. It's like you can read books. I know a lot of people that don't read books, but that's cool. You can watch podcasts like this.
Yeah.
You can listen to. I'll say one of my biggest tools of learning was music. Listen to artists.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But in today's culture, you would have to pick with wisdom.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. That's what
I want to take the chance to swing at that because we have too many artists within our culture who sing not a lot of substance that we need to digest at the time. So when we are using and we're picking tools, that's why the question was so crucial, and I'm going to hammer it back, is obviously it's knowing how do we self-educate correctly. Because for example, I could listen to a musician, I pick someone who's talking about completely garbage and he's telling me, yo, stab your best friend, steal his girlfriend, get money, you know what I'm saying? And you won't be shocked if you type those lyrics in Google and found them, you know what I'm saying, and it has millions and millions of views. So how do we accurately find, because we're coming from a place of not knowing, going to a place of wanting to know. So we're almost going to take whatever we are given. So how do we know what's what? How do we know what's
I feel like good? An approach is it's not that it's self-explanatory, but it's in the word, the key word, self-educating. You have to educate yourself on yourself again. It's a case of if you're facing like the situation, approaching your pop saying, I'm feeling depressed right now, like nothing's going right for me, everything's going left, I don't know what I'm trying to do, my girl's trying to leave, I ain't getting no money, like that's when you have to educate yourself on yourself again, because you're not recognizing the person you're with 90% of the time. I'm not going to say 100 because you got to sleep, but it's a case of you have to know that you have to, how I call it, the pool, you have to dive into it and see how you're made up of, see why you do the certain things you do, see what the triggers are, and being able to know what needs to be lessened, what needs to be less frequent in your routine, because certain things need to be removed to make a change to see if it works better. Because say if you're feeling depressed like in that situation, but every day you're eating junk food, like every single day, you don't switch it up, you don't have water in your diet, you're smoking cigarettes, like you're drinking every weekend with people after work, like that's literally like taking in different substances. You're going to be in a place where you're not even going to be fully present, like in the situations, and being able to make constructive and courageous decisions, because sometimes we need to put ourselves in that courageous moment and push ourselves a little bit to see what we're made of, because then we learn a little bit more of our identity, seeing what we're capable of with the knowledge that we have at the moment and seeing where we could go with it. So I think it's a little bit of studying on ourselves, but
it's like the other way around. We think like to get to the feeling we have to we're gonna have to do something first, but it's like like you tell yourself, cool, I'm gonna do this, and then hopefully I'm gonna feel better afterwards. But it's not like, well, we choose to see it the other way around. Basically, the best way we can to get into that knowledge is going away from mainstream anything, mainstream media, mainstream music, mainstream television, because what you see represented on mainstream television is you see a bunch of boys, you see a lot. It's not a coincidence that all of these new rappers are called Lil Baby and all that. That's emasculating, you know. Everyone's got Lil or Baby in their name. Like that's not a coincidence, you know. So it's like the music that I'm talking about as well, that I learned from, is you won't see on TV or you won't see on Top 40 or whatever. You get me? So it's like sometimes straying away from the crowd and just being individual enough to
see what's right.
See what's right for yourself. You know what I'm saying? Instead of following the crowd sometimes.
Do you know what? Yeah, just a blanket example, even for myself. Like I was told I'm asthmatic. Like from the time I came into the UK, right? Man, I told, listen, you're asthmatic. Looking at my mom, like, what's that? They've always given me an inhaler. I've never, ever had an asthma attack. God willing, you know. that's not because I know everything and I just chose not to listen.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm trying to say is sometimes you have to, like you said, learn yourself, understand yourself. I knew it was impossible. I said, wait, I played basketball. I won't leave the court from the time I start the game to the end of the game. I can't be asthmatic. It doesn't make sense. And you know, at one point I'm like, Mom, it doesn't make sense. And she's like, you know what? You've got to use the inhaler. And like you said, be okay to learn and figure yourself. You know, I had to sit down with Pops and be like, you know, I'm not using the inhaler. I've got one, but I'm not using it.
Big up to you though, you know what I'm saying? Because people in the same situation would have took it and then they would have then created the identity for themselves. Cool, I've got asthma, I've got an inhaler. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound as clean as that. You know, there were many conversations with many different people who led me to understand where I stood. So the thing I'm taking away from this the most is self-education is important, is because we need to find out what our identity is. Once we know our identity, we need to push that power out further into other people in our community. How are we doing for time? Yeah? Okay. So
also linked to the topic that we were just talking on, we've got a comment coming in from Weston_B_official, and he was touching on the topic laziness and unmotivated versus mental health, these kind of things that black men are facing in this community. He was touching on the fact that yes, 100% don't need to debate that we can run through mental issues, and it's also the stigma around mental health in the black community needs to change. So I think he's also resonating with the fact that we need to bring light to the issues that we're facing with this mental health issue, and that we need to come up with some sort of resolutions.
Strong.
Yeah, man. One of the comments that I picked out as well on the Progression Company page for the questions that we had was a comment by Official Stas, and it responded, black people don't lack motivation, it's support that they lack when struggling with mental health issues, which I definitely agree with, because on a bigger scale, everybody has issues with mental well-being, you get me? So it's about the support that you're given to deal with that, because everyone's going to go through it. It's about how you kind of deal with the situation, you get me? So I mess with that.
Yeah. So we've got one more comment here from Buxley __, and he actually replies, you know what, they don't lack motivation. So black men don't lack motivation. It's nothing to do with race, but it's about personal attributes. So the first thing that makes me think of, you know, is the narrative that's shown through media, and we see that black men may be seen as lazy and so forth, but it's not that. It's nothing to do with all of that. It's personal attributes for personal people, whether they're black, white, Martians, from outer space or wherever you're from, you know, so I definitely resonate with that.
What's good, people? It's Alex here at the Progression Company on the Progression Talks podcast. On my right we got
Rami,
and on my left we got
Nigel.
Stay tuned, we got more podcasts coming, and yeah, stay positive, stay motivated, keep progressing.